What if the whisper you keep ignoring isn't doubt? It's your soul asking for attention. Welcome to Unpolished Wisdom, a space for conversations that are beautifully imperfect, raw, unfinished, and deeply human. I'm Katrina Gisbert-Tay, a medical doctor and executive well-being coach. Through my work, I help people navigate transitions with honesty, courage, and compassion. And today we sit with Dani Van de Velde, meditation teacher, intuitive healer, and author of Spirited, who walked away from a successful finance career spanning various continents to answer an inner calling she couldn't yet name. This is a conversation about navigating spiritual awakening when the people around you don't understand. About the courage it takes to walk away from a life that looks successful on paper but feels misaligned in the soul. Welcome, Dani, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I forget that you're a doctor. I think I should call you Dr. Katrina. It sounds very sexy.
It's okay. No need for that. All good. We're all good. Just call me Kat or Katrina.
Kat, really happy to be here, honey. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So for those of you who are listening and watching with us today, I've known Dani for several years now.
It's been a while.
So I'm part of her spiritual community, and really I've taken so much from it for myself, my own growth as a coach, as a human being. I think that's the big part as a mom.
Great.
But what I wanted to share today, and thank you for being on the podcast, is I get to share your luminosity and your magic with the rest of the world, even if I want to keep you as just mine.
Thank you.
But maybe it's time.
No pressure. Okay, activate luminosity. Okay, let's go.
Oh, let's go. So first off, I think let's talk about Spirited. So the book is called Spirited,
yes,
but it is an ethos of yours. It's what you live by.
Yes.
What does it mean?
Yes. So, well, there's a number of angles to it, but the reason why I wrote Spirited is because I really felt that within the mind-body space, there's a lot of awareness, and in terms of well-being, in terms of living a good life and performance, really. And but there is this other pillar of our being, which is our spirit. And there's far less commentary and narrative around that, unless it's like really super woo-woo, crystal in my bra type stuff that you see on Instagram, And even though it can't sort of like empirically, be measured such as or researched in a way, it's very much felt, it's very real. It's very much part of our well-being and who we are. And I really feel that if we can make space for our spiritual essence and our spirit in our life, then we open up a much more vast and expanded array of skills and senses and power that's available to us. And so that's why I wrote Spirited. And it moves along a kind of a trajectory which isn't linear when someone starts exploring their spirituality, but it's observable where you might start, for example, with some yoga or some meditation, or you might have a calling to find yourself a teacher around mindfulness. I mean, it doesn't really matter how you start, or you might read. I was a big reader early days. And you start to gain a bit of mastery over your system. Okay. And this is why I'm really big on teaching meditation. And this generates a shift from living reactively to living responsively. And so rather than sort of ninja kicking life, which elicits a massive stress response in your body, you're responding to life with a bit of choice and discernment. So some kind of regular practice, be it yoga, like I said, even mindful walking or breath work or meditation, generates a pause point, and you start to realize that your center of awareness and your interface with life are two different things, and then it starts to move, so I write about moving from responsive to expansive. So as you become more sensitive to energy and interconnections and synchronicities around you, which we explore a lot, you start to understand that actually everything is really interconnected, and you start to get called a bit more into helping other people, and because seeing suffering or seeing other people not having an easy time becomes a little bit untenable because you become very aware of this interconnectivity between people in your immediate environment, in your community, even in the world, and then a further expansion from that, which I write about, is expansive to creative. So this is the real embodied knowing that as within, so without, as the universe, as above, so below, as the universe, so your soul, and I think this is in this arena belongs the real esoteric arts, beautiful manifestation work. As you know, I love different forms of modern magic. And this can only really be sort of played with effectively and powerfully when you understand that it's all one virtual reality multiplayer game.
Oh my gosh, I love that. We could be here for 3 hours, I think, talking about this, you and I, exactly. But I think the place I want to start, and I want to pull this thread a bit because it's quite similar to my own journey, which is you coming from a big corporate life, in finance, and now getting into the spirited living. Dare I say, some people would call it woo-woo.
Yep.
Right? What was it that had you shift into that? Was there a whisper? Was there a calling?
I think it was more an ignored whisper that became a scream.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I grew up in a really spiritual house at
Catholic.
home, Catholic.
Yep, same as me. Yep.
Same, yeah. We've got that in common, and I loved it. I loved going to mass, and I still pray the rosary. And that Catholic upbringing taught me a lot of stuff around esotericism. It taught me the power of prayer and intention, the beauty of losing yourself in devotion. It taught me about the existence of other realms beyond the obvious. The Catholic Church recognises the choir of saints and angels and so on.
Yes.
It taught me about the movement of grace, which now that I'm studied in the energy arts, I can see is sort of the same thing, and much, much more. So, and also a very strong moral compass. And sadly, it was because of the morality of the church that I had to, in my adult life, it just was untenable for me to identify with Catholicism. But I don't discredit all the beautiful foundational spirituality that it gave me. And, and in the book you would have read as well that I write a lot about, particularly my mum. She's very Fae, so Irish, just knew when I was up to no good, without any obvious signs. I was, I thought I was well undercover. And to this day, she's still, she's very elderly and she's quite unwell at the moment, but she will still ring when she sort of senses something or she was an artist, and she painted watercolour and she has a very deep, she grew up in North Queensland, has this very deep connection with nature, and that she instilled that in me. And I believe the wilderness is as close to the divine that you can get in this material plane, so I've got a huge love of the wilderness. It's a form of medicine for me. Anyone who follows me on social media was probably sick to death of all of my posts about the dawns, so, and that beautiful,
and the trees
and the birds but there is so much in nature, and we are not separate from nature. And so for me, and definitely for my clients and within my spirited communities, accessing nature, steeping yourself in nature is part of that. So sorry, it's sort of a round answer, but I was very deeply spiritual from a very young age, and I had some really big questions, big ones, and I was constantly hungry to understand, like, what am I feeling when I do pray? Like, what is that feeling? Why do I feel it in my body? What are these dreams that I'm having? What's going on in my mind? And from an unusually young age, I had some pretty big questions that weren't being answered in the sort of origin pools of wisdom. So I started searching. So that was going on. right from the get-go. You know, I had a memory when I was thinking about coming in here today and getting excited about chatting with you is, you know, I had a collection of owls and puppet witches when I was like 5. Like, so it was in me. It's always been in me. I was one of those girls that bit of sticks and leaves in the pot and making brews as a little girl, and very magically minded early. But at the same time, my parents really I've got 3 siblings, so there's 4 of us. We were all like super highly educated, went to the best schools. Mum and Dad saw that as a necessary investment in the children. We were really well travelled, and we were raised for a high business and success, you know. So that was another side of my personality. And for a long time, they weren't mutually exclusive. I was able to hold them both. You know, I had this beautiful sort of private inquiry going on and voraciously reading books. And it was before the time of podcasts and stuff, but beautiful writing that is still regarded as the sort of, you know, seminal works. I was into Rumi really young and poetry, and loved it. Yet I also, you know, I've got a few degrees and, you know, university degrees, and went on with a beautiful career, which I absolutely loved as well. And there's reflections in both, you know. I mean, you do organisational change, and so there are these dynamics and collectives, I think, you know, where especially when you are helping organisations facilitate either cultural change or process re-engineering, which is what I was doing, as well as communications, and how people transition through different stages of change, you know. And ironically, you're doing that. That's what this podcast is about. And that's what I do as well within the work that I do from a spiritual lens, you know. So they weren't mutually exclusive for a long time. But it did get to a point where more and more I felt that my career lacked meaning. It just became not that meaningful to me. And I knew that it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And I ignored that. And kept going in because I was on a really good wicket, you know, like I was on a sort of early 1990s mega expat deal. I'd bought a place in London. I did like the identity that it gave me and the authority that it gave me, and a bit of glamour. You know, it was quite a glamorous time in London, in the corporate scene, and I was in charge of doing events as well. So I was the girl with the tickets to Wimbledon, to Ascot, to Henley.
Fancy.
I was very popular, and it was really fun and lovely, you know. And we were doing very good progressive work in the property and finance industry over in the UK, but it just lost its luster for me, and it's interesting, you know, because I started getting throat infections.
Oh, that is so
And
interesting.
I'm not a sickly person. I'm very robust. But
It manifested somatically for you.
it did. Yeah,
That's
it did.
so interesting.
I kept losing my voice, and which was interesting because because now a lot of what I do is around voice, right? So I do audio courses. I've just come off my live radio show in the US. I do lots of podcasts. I've got my own podcast all about voice. And so it was almost like my vocal cords checked out of the arena that I wasn't supposed to be in. And then through what I believe is a very magical set of synchronicities, I was offered a redundancy, and I scooted out of there straight away. And having a redundancy was just the best. I know, and this is something that I know you work with your clients and I work with mine, because you've got a choice how you perceive a redundancy.
Of course.
And a lot of people see it as a rejection, and they get a real wobble in their confidence. We can talk about that later. I was just like, woohoo, like, yes.
Second chance, rebirth, new
Second
journey.
chance,
Totally.
Financial pressure off. I've got time, and I'm going to allow what is currently kind of like a tectonic shift feeling to rise into something clear, a clear direction, and it did.
Oh, I love that. But I just want to go back to the Catholic upbringing.
Yes.
You said you were you and your siblings were all educated, brought up to be high performing, to live in this finance corporate world, to be very successful, which you were.
Yep.
So how did you pull away?
So, well, my dad, I remember having a conversation with Dad, and he was going, "What are you doing? You're at the top of your game."
Yeah.
But I think the redundancy really buffered that.
Yeah.
I said, because it was true in a way, like I was in a global role, and during the sort of over the new year of this year that I left, they had restructured and they offered me a regional role, which I didn't, I could have done if I was really into it. Like it was Western Europe and the UK, so it's a fantastic region.
Yeah.
But the redundancy was the clear choice for me. So I could say to Dad, there was a restructure, I've taken a redundancy. And it wasn't like I was sort of like couch surfing, like I was very well funded. So there was no real risk at all of survival or anything. And then, and in that time during redundancy as well, and like not doing anything at all, which was a real existential shift, I met my now husband too. So there were a lot of changes going on in my life at that time. And I think all those changes kind of like assuaged any concern that I was checking out into hippie world. That didn't really sort of start to manifest until I moved back to Australia and had children.
Oh, okay. So I want to hear about that. The shift into the hippie world, the spiritual world, the woo-woo.
Yeah.
Coming from that very Catholic, strict Catholic upbringing.
Yeah.
There must have been some tension there. Or a little bit.
I think later that came when I was really out of the closet. So
to speak, yes.
Yeah, and also my initial, during those couple of years in London when I didn't work after I left my corporate career, I just went straight, like head first, like a duck dive into the amazing London esoteric scene. And I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was going to drumming circles before they were cool. I was doing breath work. I was doing past life regression. I was just like, there were so many amazing practitioners at that time in London. And I couldn't get enough of it. And that was useful for me because it started to help me discern what felt real and useful and what didn't. And it also helped me start to develop a language around it, to be able to describe my experiences and so on, which is also very important.
Of course.
Because, as you know, part of my purpose today is to de-wooify spirituality and normalise it, because it's in our design, Anyway, so I was kind of thrashing my way through a very glorious jungle, but I didn't have any discipline. I didn't have any mastery. I would meditate sometimes and hit high ecstatic states of bliss, and then other times I'd be watching. I didn't have any discipline or mastery. And so the first thing that I did when I moved back to Australia is I found a meditation teacher.
Okay.
And she was rigorous, like not allowed to have any music, but she was brilliant. Louise Gilmore, she's only relatively recently passed over. And I stayed with her for many, many years. And we started off with discipline meditation. I then got qualified through her to teach meditation. So within the family context, that's kind of okay.
Yeah.
It's not too spooky.
Yes.
And I love the neuroscience of that. What existed at that time, because we're sort of talking like 25 years ago, and now we've got this whole plethora of fantastic neuroscience and cellular biology and ways to measure what our bodies and brains
It's so
do.
grounded already now in science. It's just fantastic.
It is. It's awesome. And so, but then with Louise, as we progressed in our relationship, and she really became a spiritual mentor to me, she was a shamanic practitioner. Hugely psychic, and she taught me shamanic practices like shamanic healing. She taught me shamanic journeying. She taught me astral travel. She really taught me what I don't believe I've come to the capacity of the mind, but she got me to start thinking about our consciousness in a very different but also very practical way. And she was also very measured with how she taught stuff. So we would do shamanic journeys, and then we would bring information back, and we would see it play out in our lives. So it wasn't all just chasing bliss. Like it was a very measured, interrogative approach to working with different aspects of the mind. And she was also really big in Tibetan Buddhism. So she was the one that taught me some of those very beautiful, powerful energy transmutation practices, which I teach our community now. So Tonglen, Poha, Brahmavihara cultivation, they've all got quite sort of big sounding names, but what they all come down to is being able to use your awareness to access the sort of nuclear power of your heart to transmute frequencies and to heal. And she taught me that. And that's where I started a non-disclosure sort of strategy with my family. Like they didn't need to really know, but what they could observe is how much happier I was, how much healthier I was, how things seemed to just fall into place for me.
Yeah.
And that was observable, but I didn't really tell them exactly what I was into at that stage.
Oh my gosh. And it's so many parallels, I feel, to my journey, which I'll share. And Dani knows this, but same with you. As a child, I've always felt quite intuitive. It's just, there were certain things, I was just feeling certain things and sensing, and it was weird to me because nobody else in my family was like that.
Yeah.
And I come from a family of surgeons, a family of doctors. So all the more the science is, very important, and we know what we know based on the data. But what was interesting, and my father will listen to this and he'll hear this just now, but I've noticed with him and my grandfather. So my grandfather was an orthopedic surgeon. My father, who is still alive, is a trauma surgeon. But I noticed them in their practice when I'd be with them, practicing when I finished medical school, was they were very intuitive in the way they worked. And it was always a sensing. They would say to me, I don't need a scan to check if there's anything wrong with that patient.
Yeah.
But rather there was just a deep knowing.
Yeah. So there is, there's so much in that. First of all, what a pedigree.
Yeah.
Doctor. Awesome. And also just on that too, I'm a as you know, an Asui Reiki master, so I'm also in the healing arts. And I would say that the healer archetype is very strong in your family line and very strong in you, obviously, because you've got generational healers in there. And that archetype can express in different ways. So I never got a medical degree. I got law and finance instead. But it's strong in me, this desire to help people. And I would say that was probably a part of you from when you were a little one.
Oh, no,
Helping.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it was also, and you know this, but I also always felt different.
Oh, yeah.
As a child. Did you also have that
Yeah,
experience?
absolutely. Yeah. I think if you're sensitive,
Yeah.
then you're participating in information and energy that's not obvious to the other kids around you.
Yes.
And also if you're sensitive, you get hurt easily as well, So but I'm a bit the same today. Like I'm not madly social. And after a busy week of speaking with thousands of people, I prefer to hang
You're
out
done.
with trees and my cats.
Yeah.
But going back to your father, like having this intuitive sense,
Yeah.
right, and knowing and of course he would get the scans and all of it would be confirmed, but he would just know straight away what he was dealing with. So there's some really interesting studies on the spectrum of psychic awareness. And so we've got obviously our kind of what I call mundane awareness. It's not mundane in the sense that it's boring, but it's the awareness which is facilitated through our physical senses, right? And then up the other end of the scale are our psychic senses. So these are interestingly not counterpoints, but parallel to our physical senses. So we have physical sight, we have clairvoyance, we have physical taste, we have clairgustance. So our senses that we attribute to bodily senses have a psychic counterpart. But in the middle, there's this big, of this sort of spectrum, which we all have, there's a sort of an area called interosense. Okay, so this is where it's not obvious, the information, but it's felt and known.
Oh.
And there are different psychological models that explain interosense. And one of them is, and I can't remember the name of it now, and I wish I did because I'd sound way cooler, would explain your father's knowing that he's just so practiced and so good at what he does that there would be a pattern recognition in his subconscious mind of, let's use that example, appendicitis, even if the symptoms weren't regular, but he would just know. And that can come down to just doing it often enough and being really, really good and observant of what he does. So another really good example of that would be a professional chess player who would be able to pick their opponent's move 2 or 3 moves in advance because it's patterning.
Yeah.
They just know the patterns after repetition. But that doesn't at all devalue that incredible, because it is a form of intuition. It's a form
for
of
sure.
intuition. But it comes from pattern repetition.
Totally. And for me, it doesn't, logically, as a doctor too, I'm like, "Look, that does not make sense."
Yep.
Like, I remember clearly a patient who came in with a sore throat, like saw a throat specialist, right? Was sent home. And my father saw them and said to him, okay, I think this is cancer.
Wow.
And so they were a bit like, oh, that's interesting. And it was.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. For me, it's things like that that I'm like,
so I would say that would be a little bit further up the spectrum, you know, like where he has a sense. Now, so this is the realm that this is where I operate.
Yeah.
So in my energy healing sessions, if there is, I have been able to feel the presence of cancer or feel the presence of a new conception before the mother has known in the Reiki session, because everything has a frequency, everything.
yeah,
And dis-ease has a dissonant frequency. And if you're sensitive, and working with Reiki makes you even more sensitive, and I was sensitive to start like you were, you can feel it.
yeah,
And your psychic senses will convert that frequency into something in your mind, maybe a clairvoyant image or just a sense of urgency, you know. And so I would say that would be what your father was sensing, is that there's a dissonance here. It just doesn't feel right.
yeah. And I actually think most people have a capacity
Yep.
to sense this, but are we willing to listen?
Well, I agree with you. So I agree. We're all born with 2 eyeballs. We're all born with clairvoyance. We've all born on the same beautiful design, which spans visible matter, our bodies, our senses, all the way through to invisible. And we know our thoughts and our emotional fields, which can now be measured, are very real fields of frequency. You know, we believe that now because we can measure them. We know our thoughts are outside of our head.
Yeah.
We know our emotional field extends even further. We can measure aura, so we can photograph and measure the energetic electromagnetic field, which is emanated by every cell by the heart. They have their own bespoke auras and also the whole shooting match, because we can measure it now, so we can accept it, right? We accept now meridians that run through the body, or
Because there's proof now.
that we've got proof.
Yes.
Exactly. But with the psychic senses, it's more difficult to prove, and also to perceive them, we need some mental space. And this is again why people come to me for coaching. They go, I want to be able to be really sharp psychic like you do. I want to be able to, and I'll say, do you meditate? No, that's where we start. You cannot perceive the more subtle, finer frequencies, if your mind is
Yes.
like a hurricane, you just can't.
Yeah. So the grounding is so important,
Grounding and discipline.
and the discipline.
Yep.
So I have a strange question for you. You're going to laugh when I ask this. How do you know if it's intuition or if it's an hallucination and you're making it up?
Yep. Okay. So as you know, I do psychic development training in the Spirited Living community every week, and we love it. Like, we've got this gorgeous group of people that come. Some come and go. Some are like every single week they turn up, and we have a discussion around the psychic senses. They have Q&A, and then we do psychic reads on each other. And this season we've been inviting in guests, which has been great, for free psychic reads so that psychics can practice. And that has to be one of the first questions anyone new to psychic development asks. They go, am I making it up? Or am I really perceiving a pattern of energy and information that's relevant around this person? And my immediate response is it all comes down to the feeling. How does the information feel? And psychic information has a voltage to it. And if you're making it up, it's got a duller frequency. Dull not meaning it's bad or anything, but dull meaning you are not within an energetic connection with the person you're reading. You're in your own mind. It's the feeling. And of all the psychic senses, of which we've got many, and many I think that we haven't named yet as well, the primary sense is clairsentience. We feel it. We feel the frequency first, and then our system will translate that into an image or a knowing or a word. Some people are very clairaudient, so they'll get words or whatever. It's the feeling. And but also I would add that the impression of psychic information within our awareness occurs in the same place where we imagine stuff.
Okay, tell me more.
So we think of our imagination as a function.
Yes.
Like, I am now visualizing an apple, right?
Yes.
So we think it's a function.
Okay.
In the psychic arts, we view it as like a space where stuff happens, okay? And this is also reflected in Western magical traditions as well, where the imagination or the imaginal realm is referred to with these really gorgeous sort of names like the altar of the Most High or the alchemical container. And this is why visualization is so big in the esoteric arts as well, because we are creating with our visualizations in the space of the imagination, which gives us access to other realms of energy. Whew, okay, so this is such a big topic, but we can easily, especially if we've been programmed, which I think a lot of us have been, that imagining stuff is not real, that we doubt what we're experiencing within that space in our mind. So
yes,
and we dismiss it
very
readily,
yes.
and very often it is accurate, current, meaningful psychic information if you're doing a read, for example, on someone else.
Yeah.
So, but I'm guessing you're probably similar to me. Like, I don't know how many report cards I was given from teachers going, she's off with the fairies, she daydreams, lucky she's intelligent because she's getting good marks.
I had imaginary friends. I was 4 and my parents were a bit like, who is she speaking to?
Yeah, and it gets shut down.
Yes.
You
so,
know.
So an interesting story, and I'll bring this up, was, and my relatives, my cousins who will hear this will recall, about 3 or 4, I had imaginary friends, a family. And in Filipino folklore, they were dwarves. They were white dwarves. So could call them fairies, angels, whatever it is.
Yes,
right?
elementals.
Elementals. And I would speak to them, and they would have places at the table, and they had a place to sleep.
Oh, you're very polite, hostess.
Exactly. Even in the car, they couldn't sit in the space where my friends were sitting. I'd freak out, right? Until there were people with a third eye who would see me with my parents, and they would report back what I told my parents.
Amazing.
And apparently I would speak to them in a very old Tagalog, so Filipino language,
Yep.
that I was not taught at home.
Oh, I love that.
So my parents didn't understand it. They were like, where does she learn? My mom was an English teacher, so
Yeah.
English was a big language in our house. We had to
Right.
speak English very well,
English.
proper English.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know until one time I was in tears and they slept in the laundry hamper, the rattan like laundry hampers with a cover,
Yeah.
and I made my parents say goodbye to my friends because they had to they have a child. So it was a mom and a dad and a little boy.
Yeah.
And the boy was sick, so they had to take him
They had to go.
back. They had to go and bring him to their doctor, and
Yeah.
I was very upset.
Yeah.
And told my parents to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning, and my dad said to me, "So are you okay? Like, are your friends still here?" And in the 80s, given they didn't take me to see therapy or anything, they were very open-minded, my parents. They kind of just went with it.
Yeah,
you know?
so gorgeous. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. And you know what I said? I don't know what you're talking about.
So shut down.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's so interesting. So everything I've told you was not my memory.
Yeah.
It's everybody saying the same stories to me.
Yeah. So there's so much interesting stuff to unpack in that. Like, I love that the ancient language was coming through you and that these were folkloric characters.
Yes.
So that's suggesting that our culture of origin and collective belief systems have an effect on what we are able to perceive.
Oh, so interesting.
So, I'm Australian born, but my DNA tells me I'm 80% Indigenous Irish, which is quite different to my actual family tree, which is Northern European and Flemish, Belgian, and German, and so on. But and I know that I thought there was a dash of Irish, and also Indigenous Irish, so the original tribes of Ireland, and who were known as seers as well, by the way, which is interesting. But that whole tradition also honours. It's an animistic tradition, so it honours the season, the cycle, the elements as sentient beings, and I have experiences of the elements as intelligences because I think it's in my makeup.
Yes.
But I don't think I would be able to see your little white dwarfs because it's not in my makeup.
Yeah.
So there's something around bloodline, lineage, culture of origin which affects our ability to perceive things.
Yeah.
And then there's something around as well which is interesting, the rise of the rational mind as a child and also, I mean, you sounded very young. How old were you then?
3 or 4.
So you were tiny. So you wouldn't have been exposed to education by then, but you would have been exposed to rational thought.
Yeah.
And perhaps there was something within you, because children fall in line with the tribe, right? So there might have been something with you going, okay, I need to fall in line with the tribe. I'm going to shut that down.
Yeah.
But it can be reopened. You know, a lot of mediums that I hang out with, and also who I've interviewed on my podcast as well, they talk about early childhood experiences. They shut it down, and then later in life, a renewed curiosity comes, and they open it back up again.
Oh, no, for sure. Well, it has been opened back up also with our work,
Yeah.
as you know. And I think for me, it's this sensitivity
Yep.
has been reopened. I think, like you said, whatever it is, culture or growing up or being that rational mind just taking over, and I remember this, it's not acceptable. It's not okay to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And actually this podcast is my way of also becoming and talking about it and sharing that it's not just you having this experience. Other people have had experiences like this too.
Absolutely.
We're not alone in this.
Yeah, but it's just largely unspoken.
Exactly.
You watch your comments on this, they'll come out of the woodwork. They did with mine as well, going, I was the same and I felt those things too, and my grandmother used to sit at the end of my bed and she passed 20 years prior, and, you know, it's very, very common, you know, because we're living in a multidimensional universe.
Yeah.
We're just so entrained on the obvious.
Yes.
And entrained on our obvious senses. But I mean, you just think about what happens when we dream. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know, like you can, there are some dreams obviously where your brain is just sort of working out all of the imprints and the busyness and the unfinished emotions and that sort of thing. But then there are other times that you dream and it's something else, you know,
totally.
like I've had prophetic dreams, you know, I've had precognition in dreams. Or I've dreamt where a character in the dream has been cast, and it might be something crazy like a tea party, Mad Hatter's tea party, but that character then becomes very important or back in my life in the days to come. It's some form of precognition. And that is not our logical mind. That is our mnemonic mind, you know, that is the language of that is symbol and sensation and synchronicity, you know, not logic and language and linear thought. And we all have that too.
Yes. Yes. No, for sure. So I want to go back a bit to you. Sorry, we diverged a little bit to like my story. Yeah. So many things to talk about.
They're great.
But I wanted to go back a little bit to how did you cross that divide when you finally came out and now you're really out like
yeah,
you're out like there's a book
and proud.
very proud and how did you cross that? How did you bring the two worlds together?
So again, I think it ended up first of all, the primary movement dynamic in my life from going from you know, a corporate career and that sort of thing into now running a very successful business as well. So that ambition never left me.
Yep.
But around spirituality and modern spirituality and helping people find themselves in fuller ways came from my own practice. So the more I accepted meditation as a really key component of my well-being, and initially that's what it does. So with that pause point that we talked about before, you have a radical drop in stress hormone because you're not reacting to stuff. And you can still get a bit pissed off with something, but it's not that fierce sort of
it's
amygdala.
not as triggering.
It's not like a trigger. And so you heal. So you feel better, your immune function gets really strong, you sleep really well, there's more joy, there's more gratitude, there's more awe and wonder. All of that stuff just sort of naturally happens when you get on top of a reactive nervous system. And from there, it's much easier then to start exploring. And what rose in me was a very deep sense of purpose. I just knew that what I was so passionate about is also what I'm here to do. And I also had a much stronger perception of being guided. And really that's how it unfolded, is through guidance. So like when we moved to Singapore 11 years ago, I had no intention of starting a meditation business. I had just come off the bat. I had 2 young kids and that early mummy stuff and no helper in Australia, but loved it. And my husband worked a lot and travelled a lot, so I sort of liked doing a lot of that on my own, but I had family around. And I'd created this fantastic charity, which was like this Peter Pan charity, which got government funding, and it's still going today. So it had been quite a busy time, and I thought, great, Singapore, I'm going to get a helper. Initially, I didn't like the idea of a helper, but that didn't last long. And I'm going to learn Mahjong, I'm going to do heaps of yoga, and I'm just going to be an expat wife for a while and just chill. That was my plan. No. It just
did not happen.
It didn't happen. I couldn't find my groove socially in the expat scene. It was. I mean, you would remember Singapore 10 years ago. It was very extravagant, and I couldn't, that didn't sit well with me, like
Yeah.
the really extravagant lunches and the extravagance
Yeah,
of
the
it.
Thai life, as we call
The
it.
Thai life, and I sort of go, well, we could feed a small African country with the cost of that lunch, So I had a dissonance there, and again, it was this need for meaning. And I left it. I was at an expat ladies' lunch, and everyone's in their finery, and we're all clutching our pearls. It was just really fun, and there was a lady next to me who I'm sure is a very nice lady, but she was complaining about how her helper wasn't ironing the shirts properly or something. And that was my seminal moment. I just went, if I don't do something with myself here, I'm either going to stab someone like that in the eye with a butter knife, or I'm going to become an alcoholic, or both. And so I excused myself from that lunch, and I put in an application to the Ministry of Manpower for a letter of consent, which for listeners not in Singapore, you need to do that if you're a dependent here. And it's notoriously takes ages and you're never guaranteed a result. And within the same lunation, I was approved. And I was like, well, that was quick. It was like a matter of like a couple of weeks. And I thought, right, well, now I've got a license to work. What am I going to do? And so I thought, I'm just going to start teaching meditation the way I understand it. So I draw from world traditions, which is how I was taught by my beautiful teacher, Louise, but I also love neuroscience. So I'm just going to put on a few courses like that. And at that time in Singapore, there wasn't anything in that niche. So either for good, solid meditation, you would go to the Buddhist Center, which I was doing, because it was founded in really solid practice with the science of meditation. So I was doing that regularly because I couldn't find a meditation group that I liked. Or there were these kind of private communities that were quite expensive and a little bit cloaked, and I didn't like the feel of them either, and a bit of a guru thing, which I'm not into. And so I just opened up some courses and it went nuts. Like it was so popular. I think what I was feeling I needed, a lot of other people were feeling they needed as well.
Wow.
So I got really busy really quickly, started group work, like bigger groups. I was hesitant to move online because I loved holding circle. I started women's circles, which have been running now for 11 years at the New Moon Lodges. And then I also was introduced to Reiki, and that changed the game again. So I immediately took to Reiki, and I initially bartered my level 1 and level 2 attunement with my first Reiki master because she wanted me to teach her meditation and the psychic arts. So
I love that.
We did a witchy deal.
Nice.
And Jane Tunbridge, a brilliant healer, she's back in Australia now. And then I just couldn't get enough of it. I got very busy with healing very, very quickly. Because I think I had an understanding of frequency and of blueprinted wellness, and I could intuit.
I love it.
And what I noticed was the more Reiki I ran through my system, the sharper my psychic perception became. And I went,
Oh, that's so interesting.
these are connected.
Yeah.
Because Reiki is a very it's a very harmonic, high light frequency. And so as a practitioner, it's not coming from you.
Yes.
You just
channel.
You just channel it.
Yeah.
So you learn how to open yourself up like a big pipe, and it goes to where it's needed. So I was participating in hundreds and what became several thousands of Reiki sessions a year. And my psychic perception was just going wild, like precognition, lucid dreaming. I started, people were seeing me for psychic reads anyway, but getting really precise on the detail, even surprising myself, going, well, that was pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And so that got me very curious. So I then wrote a course. By that stage, I was master teacher level. I wrote my course, which is called Intuitive Healing, which is traditional Usui Reiki, but with psychic development. And it was in my Reiki sessions that I started perceiving people in spirit. I didn't know what it was at the time, though.
Oh, so then you started the medium.
Yes, so the mediumship's a late kick-in, only sort of the last well, I've been training every week with a fantastic teacher, Christine Morgan, who you know, for 4 years. I don't miss a circle. And I've been offering mediumship as an offering to people, I think, I don't know how long, probably the last 3 years.
No, I love it.
So there is something about this frequency, that meditation that the energy arts give you, and your awareness.
Yeah.
And I don't think it ever ends.
No.
And back to little Katrina, little girl Katrina, when you're a little one and you're not bogged down with worries and you've got a beautiful big imagination and you're super sensitive to the elements and things, you're naturally like that.
No, yeah. And I think with your help in the circles and just being with the community, the sensing is very much back for me.
Oh, so good.
So which feels very much like coming home.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's what I'm hearing from your story, which is coming from a fantastic life, very successful life. You felt the dissonance. You were sensitive enough to know that something just wasn't clicking.
Yeah.
And you found your way back home.
Yeah. It does feel like home.
Yeah. And so I have one final question for you, if it's okay.
Goodness, that was quick.
I know. I'm like a few minutes left, but this is I'm having so much fun. I will definitely have you back.
Yes, please.
And the final question that I ask all of my guests is, how would you hold space for your past self, knowing what you know now?
Oh, that's so good. I love this wiser, older self stuff. I would reassure myself that just to trust what I'm feeling, to trust. And I would reassure myself that I'm way more than what I am perceiving myself to be. You know, and that I will come to realize that in this lifetime, you know, that we don't die. You know, I mean, that's a really big call to make, but this world of mediumship has shown me that our true nature is eternal and our consciousness continues on in dazzling detail and humour and personality, but well beyond the body passes, you know, and I know that because I speak to dead people every week, you know, and then connect them with their loved ones. So we are eternal and we are beyond time and space, which we perceive ourselves to be so enslaved to, and we're not, you know. And you know, it's interesting to say this is how I would hold space for my younger self. Yet I also recognise that I needed to do the journey to discover it, and I'm continuing on the journey.
Yes.
So I don't think I would want to give myself any shortcuts back then either.
No, I absolutely love it. I actually highlighted this from your book. I just want to read it back to you.
Thank you.
And I think this is a lovely way to end. And it's for those of you, it's on the first chapter. So please read Dani's book. And it says here, everything we experience in life is happening for us and being generated by us. And I think that, I got the fizzies as I was like talking about that, but oh my gosh. But really it's coming to also an acceptance that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to be difficult all the time or hard all the time, but are we willing to shift our perspective and see things in a different way? And I think there's so much magic in that.
That's totally the game. Now, so for people who may be listening to this who've just had a really serious diagnosis, right, or they've lost a child or something really big, right? So the last thing they're going to want to hear is there's a reason for that. Okay? So I want to make the point that what we're talking about is a paradigm shift.
Yes.
That life is not happening to us, but is happening for us as our spirit unfolds and reaches fruition and reaches realization, if you like. And that can happen in a split second, it can happen in a lifetime, it can happen in many, many lifetimes. So I just want to make that point that, and I think he can bring that right down to a really beautiful daily practice. You just sort of wake up every day, do a little bit of breathing, and just feel into the day that's about to play out, knowing that it is perfectly curated for your expansion, benefit, enlightenment. Because it is, if you perceive it that way.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you, my love. This was so much fun.
Really good.
Thank you.
I can't
Please come
believe
back.
It's gone so quickly.
Please
I'll
come back.
definitely come back, and good luck with the podcast. So exciting.
Thanks,
Thanks, Katrina.
Thank you. If this episode spoke to you, follow the show and share it with somebody navigating their own crossroads. This is Unpolished Wisdom. Until next time.